All right. Hello, everyone. Sorry to cut that awesome song short, but we are now going to take some time to go over week 2. Welcome to the week 2 APA training camp live stream. I am joined once again by Ali and Max, whose voice you should be very familiar with if you took the developer trail. All right, let's get started and jump in. So I mentioned I am Matt Stewart. I'm here. Ali is here. Max is here. Lou will be joining us later to discuss all of the events happening in the community and talk about some of the swag winners. All right, let's go through a recap of week 2. This was the first week where we actually split things out. There were no overlaps between the leader track and the developer trail. So everyone got to experience something new. If you did both courses, you had a busy week. So let's go through some of these things. First up, we'll go through the leader track. The first thing that we did was talk through talent development. The journey from RPA to APA is a big one. There's a lot of things that are different. And we dove into some of those things here and talked about how you can upskill your team with a skill matrix, competency matrix, identify the types of roles and personas, and really just set a game plan for you guys on building that new talent pipeline. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with our special guest. We also did a little bit of talking about monitoring and optimization. Most automations that run now, they work or they don't work. If they don't work, people put in change requests. You know, AI though is a lot different. When you're working with AI, there are happy paths, unhappy paths, middle paths, and understanding what data is coming out and how it'll inform your future optimization goals. You know, it's an art. So we reviewed that and helped set the foundation for each of the capabilities. We also dove into our first governance course with managing AI risk. We talked about a couple of topics in here that are probably brand new to you. We looked at a design framework and talked about something which I'll bring up on the next slide that I found really important, which is the point of no return. Max also walked you through what it looks like in the control room to do access and auditing. Really, you can't have an APA program where you just let everyone do whatever they want in your control room using whatever AI you want. It's not going to work. You're going to break some rules. Things are going to go poorly. So to prove to you that the product can do it, we walk through there. We also went and dove into testing generative AI, a little bit of a philosophy course, if you want to take it that way. But we got to go over some of the ways to think about how testing AI is different and how to put those things into buckets. Then in the developer track, you got to listen to Max tell you about the CoStar framework, which a lot of you did talk about in the forums. And that was awesome to see. And then you got hands-on with quite a few skills: classification, sentiment analysis, extraction, and data transformation. You also got a lesson on how to use F1 scoring, which is a traditional machine learning concept to test AI data sets when they are fixed outputs like classification, sentiment analysis, and extraction. Now, before I start talking about my key takeaways, I want to hear from Max and Ali on what were your big aha moments. I know, Ali, you didn't voice really anything in this week's material, but you've consumed it all. And I want to know how you feel. Like, what was your big takeaway?
I would say the CoStar framework, and I think anyone that's spoken to me in the last, since the start of week 2 will know how much value I've been putting in that and how much that's changed the way I personally prompt whether I'm speaking to OpenAI or Anthropic. I think I even mentioned it last week. That for me was a revelation. I thought the way Max broke it down, covering why it's important, even something like audience, which I would probably never have really considered or at least been explicit about. Maybe the only time I'd ever used that is if I was struggling with a concept and I was like, explain it to me like I'm 5 or like I'm a
Yep.
child. I don't understand it. But
That's the audience.
explicitly saying, explicitly saying this is why the audience is important, and even the tone. So that for me was huge. I would say that we've been getting content ready for APA Training Camp for a while. So once that was brought up and we knew that was the direction we were going, I've been able to use that, and it's been a revelation. And I should note as well that we know that there was a lady that won, I think, a prompt engineering competition. Sheila Teo won that using CoStar. So beat everyone else in her region in prompt engineering using CoStar. That's how powerful it was. So she was getting considerably better outputs.
Yep.
She was using that in a fine-tuning competition too. So that's just how credible it is. But you'll see as we go through the course that we use it everywhere. So yeah, Max, hats off, my friend. That was a hugely powerful video for me.
Thank you very much.
Max, what did you find to be your biggest takeaway from week 1?
So for me, it would have to be the testing with the F1 scores. And the reason being is I feel like it really brings all of the other skills that people are doing together. You highlight when you're talking about AI and you're trying to show the value of it and show how it's working, it's not just a case of, yes, this is working. No, this isn't working. There's multiple layers that come into it. Mm-hmm. And the way that you go around about kind of indicating the thresholds for your F1 scores and what score that you're going to be marking for, you've given people the ability to not just be able to understand that their prompts are working, but also how to communicate that internally. So the whole delivery is multi-layered, yet identifying there is not just a yes or no single way. You're having to use the predicted versus the actual labels, distinguish the differences, and then how do I talk this to a wider audience? And it ticks all them boxes. So I'd have to say that because it does ties all them skills up.
I like that you mentioned being able to communicate this, because that ties back to that thing that we had in week 1, that adoption and enablement portion, where everything that you do at the capability level is meant to be in a communicable asset so that you can share it with stakeholders. And if you can build something, but you can't explain how you know it's working or what level of working it is, you're not going to get into production because no stakeholder is going to trust you. So yeah, that's a great point, tying it back to that communication piece. There's also a part of that I wanted to bring up. Let me go into my key takeaways from week 1. So I had something, would start on the right-hand side with testing generative AI. And this was a slide that was in the leader trail. Don't lose sight of AI's true purpose. This example that I provided in here came from an experience that I had at my last company. Everyone was so gung-ho on getting 100% accuracy from an AI skill, from an AI capability. In this case, it was retrieval augmented generation with summarization, which developers, you will do that next week. So the summarization concept and RAG and everything associated with that, we wanted to build something where a person could ask a question and get back an answer sourced from our documents. It's a very common use case that you hear all over the place, and you would do it with enterprise knowledge here. But they weren't willing to accept anything less than 100% perfect answer from a technical perspective, right? So 100% of the answers had to come back 100% correct. That's really, really not possible. Like, sorry to burst your bubbles. Anyone who thinks that is something like ChatGPT does not do that. Like, none of the tools do that. It's almost impossible with the way our technology is. And you can't do that with people either. There are people that can't give you 100% correct answer. So what I wanted to focus on was preventing impact and making sure that it was adding value. And so this visual is meant to communicate that if the current state, where you have 10 minutes to get an answer, reading through thousands of documents manually, compared to asking a question, having citations, having reference material, having information provided to somebody, and they can know, yeah, that's right, or no, that's wrong. And even if it's wrong half the time, they're still saving overall time and not having impact. The throughput, which was a term that I used in that course, is significantly better than it was in the old days. So if you only test technical accuracy, you're throwing this solution out. But if you're looking at the actual impact it has on the business, you're realizing this is a valuable solution and we should be implementing it. So with that in mind, I also want to touch back on this managing AI risk effectively. With any process that you automate or add AI to, there's going to be a point where the action that's taken has an impact. And if you've gotten it right, it's a positive impact. If you get it wrong, it's a negative impact. And this managing AI risk effectively course is meant to help people break down where that point of no return is. Because the point of no return, once you've sent the email to the customer, no point reviewing it at that point. It's going to audit or, customer support when they complain if you got it wrong. So how do you insert people into a process or reviews into a process to mitigate that risk? And that's what that course was supposed to be. Combining those two together, you can make sure you've built a safe solution that also adds value. Those were the big takeaways that I had. And I think one of you guys actually mentioned to me that the point of no return was something that you really liked and that you hadn't seen before. I forget who it was. Might have been both of you, but do you remember who it was? Is that Ollie? Was it you pinging me about that?
Yeah, pinging to you today when I said I put too much milk in my tea and I'd gone past the point of no return.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. You can't take the milk out. That is correct. So that's everyone's key takeaway for APA training camp. If you put too much milk into your AI, you'll spoil your tea. So I want to move on to talking about one of the other questions that we asked you all in the surveys. We asked, what are your primary blockers? So what are the things that are keeping you from getting into production or using AI to solve problems with agentic process automation? And these were the answers that came back. The majority of the answers came back saying lack of technical knowledge. There was some use case identification as well. And then the third runner up is integrations with existing systems. So I wanted to just focus really quickly on these two. Integration with existing systems and lack of technical knowledge, because to me, they really mean that you guys feel that you don't have the ability to technically execute to deliver. This was derived right from the forms that you guys filled out. There is a runner-up on use case assessment, which Ollie will be very happy to share with you in weeks 3 and 4.
Music to my ears.
Yeah, we know that you've been asking about use cases. There's an entire course next week that's like half an hour long. I think it's the second longest course of the Leader Trail on use case identification and breaking down use cases. And then Ollie has the longest course of the Leader Trail in week 4, where you get to do that, but at a much bigger scale. For this week, though, I want to talk about the technical execution. And to do that, I want to bring on our special MVP guest, Philip. He is a consultant at GFL Environmental Inc. So, Philip, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Matt. Nice to be here.
So what I wanted to walk through with you and everyone else on the call, there are some assets that we provided here in our game plan, our weekly game plan. If you scroll down to this section, you will see we've got these discussion guide and team activities available for you. And what these are, and I will pull those over now, are things to help you guys with the technical knowledge gap and talent gaps that you see on your teams, that you've self-reported on your teams. And I wanted to have Phil discuss this with us because he is a consultant that doesn't just work within a team, he works with a lot of teams. So he sees talent discrepancies across multiple places. And I wanted to get his thoughts on this. So the first of the 3 assets is this skill self-assessment. And we've got the skills broken up into 3 categories. Analyze and plan, which are more business analyst or leader focused. Communication, which is about stakeholder relationship building and working within your team to get technical requirements done. And then the deliver skills, which is all of the technical delivery skills that might be required for doing agentic process automation. Phil, as you venture into different teams or you're working on different projects with different people, specifically with RPA versus APA, where do you see the biggest gaps and how do you see teams trying to address them?
Sure thing. So, I can talk both from the delivery side where you have to deliver something using a team, or as a developer, which I think a lot of the audience today is, let's say you are an RPA ninja, you have mastered everything in Automation Anywhere. When the call came to move to the cloud, you upped your skills, you made it so much more leaner. Then came API tasks. You don't need bot runners anymore. You sort of set that name for yourself. And then suddenly something like agentic process automation comes, and you think naturally it should be some skills I have to learn, and that should be it. But then you find that it is very different from your typical software project, right? So the first thing that anybody will ask you is, okay, Philip, I know you can learn it, but how do we know it'll work? And you cannot confidently say that, what, if I do it, it'll work, because now it's not within your control. You're relying on an LLM. Every time the result may be different. And I liked your opening remarks, Matt, where you said it's an art. As developers, we are expecting the same result every time. The moment you say that it is an art, it's like, oh, now you're saying you either got it or you don't. And if you don't, is that the end of it? Like that is the thought that's going through everybody's mind. And week 2 especially was very good to sort of make it a little more formal. The CoStar methodology is very good, because now you can bring it back to a science, and it doesn't have to be that may work, may not work. You can actually follow a methodology, right?
Yeah, I like in the old days where it was traditional development, the whole joke of, well, it worked on my machine. That's a thing you hear developers say. And now it's, well, it worked when I sent the prompt.
Yep.
We've shifted from one problem space to another. So
Exactly.
you just mentioned the prompt engineering and the AI testing. When you start working with these with teams on new projects, do you see that those are the two biggest ones that people are struggling to understand or upskill on?
Yes, absolutely. So the fact that we are now using natural language processing, the fact that we cannot always control the input, that is something that, let's say if you're in security, that causes concern. But even as a developer, that sets a little unease, because you don't know how to approach that. And one of the things that you touched earlier today, know the purpose of AI, that I think hits it right on the spot. Your goal isn't to get the end answer so much, not to get an accurate number. Let's say you want to do financial reporting, you shouldn't rely on AI to get, this is your revenue, this is your profit. It is more on decision support. So as much as everybody says AI is going to come and replace humans, you'll see that when you use AI, that human is all the more important, right? So you have, let's say for our exercise this week, there was this thing we did about customer service. You get a lot of tickets and you have to go respond to that. You'll see that most of a typical IT project would be like a perfect world to say, ticket comes, you classify, you respond to it. But if you do some analysis, you'll find a lot of time is not in that perfect world. You may get 90 tickets that are perfect. It is those 10 tickets where you have to research, you have to go through multiple applications. That is what takes most of the time.
Yep.
And that's also where AI helps, right? So AI can help bring that information to an agent to say, okay, this is a person that's contacting you. That's something too. Somebody emails you, you have to find who it is. I have to go look up somewhere, what is the customer number? Oh, this person didn't give that. That can all sort of be preset for you, which is where your skill should be honed to.
I'm trying to find where it is. The concept of human-centric design is something that went from being kind of like this abstract nice to have to now being a necessary thing with the AI space. And you just mentioned how humans have become more important. There's a thought, like you said, that AI is going to replace humans. And I think there are going to be some companies where it does, but those companies are going to realize they are falling behind the companies that did not replace their people with AI, but rather empowered them. A company that maintains their status quo and their current products and their current services and just automates with AI is going to fall behind the companies that use it to grow. And if you make your company bigger and offer more products and more services without having to increase your staff because you've made them more capable with AI, you're going to grow in the marketplace way more. And I think that's a mindset that is not talked about enough with this AI problem. And you mentioned the customer service one. 90% of the tickets might be easy, and 10% might be these crazy things that require a lot of research. Without AI, that 10% is likely never getting addressed to the level of care that it needs to be addressed, because there's all the other stuff that has to get done. That 90% still being worked by people, and that last 10%, there's some poor guy out there that is missing a space bar and a keyboard for months now because nobody's able to get to him. But with AI, all of the easy stuff can get done, and then people can take care of the things that do not fit neatly into these clean buckets, so you can deliver better service and better quality. So I want to touch more on this assess and plan thing. Have you gone through this and looked at like where your own skills are and where you think you might need to level up? And if so, would you mind sharing a couple examples of where you see yourself maybe as an expert or maybe as a beginner?
That's so. I will say as much as I'm a consultant, I'm also a student of this course. So I am learning as the weeks go by, and great work on getting somebody up to speed. In terms of what are the skills that are needed, I think the analysis is very, very important, because you can, unlike a typical project, you cannot set the scope ahead of time and say this is what the end outcome is going to be. In your analysis and planning, it's very important for your post-production, because much of AI much of your APA is going to be tweaked as you are in production. You cannot design for every single scenario ahead of time. So when you do put that roadmap, when you do identify success, you want to say that today it's January, in March I'll have this, but I want to give it a good 3 months after to learn to make the system better. And 3 months from then is when you can say we have a stable system, right? That part is very important. It is a little difficult to put that in documents, but that is something that you have to make sure is in your roadmap.
Right? Yeah. And for everyone wondering, yes, that will be covered in training camp. Week 4, we have a course in the Leader Trail on designing a roadmap and executing a pilot. So those things are in there. I think week 3 actually also starts a little bit about the roadmap design. So you should get a little bit of sense of that. And to be honest, we've actually structured this entire analyze and plan with all of the courses in mind. So managing AI risk effectively, that's this week. Mapping business processes, this is solving problems with types and actually doing some of the value analysis. These ones, you see type of problem, technology, monitoring. We very deliberately did this because we're trying to provide you guys a framework and the skills that align with project delivery. So you will see that. I wanted to share the other 2 assets that we have. So as you guys work through this as individuals, or a team, you might want to combine everything that you've done into one big skill matrix. If you've got 5 people on your team and they've all self-assessed themselves and you're the manager, you can fill this out and use this tool to identify where your gaps are on your team. If you have nobody on your team that's capable of designing and executing a pilot, it's going to become really apparent to you when your team score in this is the lowest, right? And then you can use that information with our third asset to start upskilling people. What do you want them to train on? What resource are they going to use? And if you've got mentors available, what information can you provide them? And if you wanted to put a deadline on it because you've got an important project, these resources will help you do all 3 of those together. And just a reminder, you can find all of those assets in the week 2 game plan within the forums. All right, Phil, thank you so much for joining us. I know Lou is itching to get in here and start talking about the community. So I am going to let her come in and let us know. I saw a question in here. Did anyone win the swag? And Lou will be here to talk through that right now. Phil, thanks
Most
for
important
joining us
question
and
of
talking
all.
about things. Yeah, the most important question of all.
Yeah, exactly. That's what everyone's waiting for.
Yep, just
Thank
the
you, guys.
swag. Cool. Thank you very much for coming. All right, Lou, come on stage and talk through all of the community stuff. Let me get that out of the way. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. And thank you all, everyone on the call, for all the wonderful shout outs and thoughtful comments across both our online community and LinkedIn. If you haven't scrolled the comment section of our APA training camp group, please do, because someone else's thoughts or comments could inspire you. And I promise they have inspired me. They've inspired a ton of people. So head on over there, do some scrolling, get inspired. I did go through and pull some of the comments we received this week. Unfortunately, I only have room for a few, but even if I didn't get it listed here, I promise we've read them and we're so grateful that you all are enjoying the courses. So let's go ahead and dive into the comments. So the first one, this week was amazing as we finally got to do some hands-on with the AI skills and API tasks. Looking forward to week 3 now. Vatsy, so many comments. This one is just, it empowers so many of the other comments because so many people were so excited to finally get in there and do some hands-on learning. So super cool. Thanks, Vatsy, for calling that out. Having a strong foundation is critical for anything credible to be built upon. Getting the contextual clarity is so vital to effectively solve today's business problems. That's Sandesh. CoStar really changed the way I think about AI prompts. I think this is something that we've heard a lot about. So we're so happy that this supported you all. Super interesting and worthy. I will for sure be using it. Dome Rent Nest. These are mostly community usernames. So one of the key takeaways from this week's APA training was the importance of understanding an agentic mindset, approaching automation not just as a tool, but as a collaborative digital partner that can adapt and evolve alongside human workflows. UmeshKumar.automation. The next one of the key topics this week has been figuring out how to identify and understand our tech capabilities so we can later use them to bring solutions, explore new possibilities, and support the business with solid implementation strategies. Michael C.S. And then finally, a key takeaway for me is using RPA and APA together, not competing against each other. I think we were concerned that APA would make all of the work we did in the RPA space irrelevant, which isn't the case. And that one is from Jessica J.
That is actually a huge takeaway for everyone to realize. Like RPA becomes the tools that your APA solutions use. You're not starting over, you're just leveling up.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Matt. That's so true. And I love this comment, so I had to pull it over because I do think that really encompasses everything that the trainings are saying. On our next slide,
this is the one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The moment that everyone has been waiting for, our 5 swag discussion series winners. We have at Reagan.Smith, at Maria4895, at JP Nira, at Sakib4856, and Zaid Chugul. Thank you all so much for your insightful comments in the discussion post, and congratulations. We will be reaching out to share a swag code with you so you can sport our amazing 2025 Automation Anywhere Pathfinder design, which, by the way, our community members voted on. So some of you in this winning list may have voted on this. So you're getting what you wanted, and I'm really excited. I want one too because they look really awesome. We have launched our week 2 swag discussion series. So make sure you head over there and drop a comment for a chance to win some swag. This week's prompt is, how has this week's courses changed the way you think about APA? Leaning back into my earlier comment, as a reminder, your comment could inspire someone else. So be sure to post. And finally, just a reminder that by completing all of week 1 and week 2 courses by April 20th, will make you be considered as an on-track participant, and you will receive a APA training camp pace setter badge to sport in the community. We'll also be sending out a template for that so you guys can show it off on social media if you wish. And that is all for the community side of things. Thanks for bearing with me as I go through community profile names. And Matt, back to you.
It's very entertaining hearing you try to sound these out. All right. So I want to talk about what's coming next week, and then we will go and answer some questions in there. Max and Ollie, could you come back on? And I want to hear how you guys feel about some of the stuff that we're moving towards. Next week, we are, the general theme is really talking to the people that matter, the stakeholders throughout your organization, and getting a use case understood and broken down. That's the theme of the Leader Week. And that is going to be capped off with the exercise of use case assessment. That'll be our team activity. Borrowed a slide from in there, mentioned that we have roadmap stuff coming. You're going to be doing roadmap design and seeing how that looks. The developer track, you're going to continue to work with Max on doing a couple more skills. I think there's 5 more hands-on skills covering the rest. That's right. You're going to get an introduction to enterprise knowledge. We're not going to go too deep into it, but you will get to interact with what our retrieval augmented generation tool looks like. And you're also going to get to do another testing course on completeness and faithfulness, which is a separate way of thinking about testing these non-deterministic, flexible outcomes. Is there anything you guys are super excited for next week for people to see and get their hands on?
For me, the risk management, I think, I have a bee in my bonnet about everyone will be on LinkedIn and talking about great, agentic use cases, but forget about the fact you've got to test it or there are inherent risks associated with it. So I think covering why one model might be better for a use case than, say, another is really, really, really important. And I think that is a video alone, just as a standalone, is super. So I would thoroughly recommend everyone make sure they watch that next week.
Cool. Max, what are your
Well, of course, besides the hands-on skills and everything like that, I'd have to say it has to go down to the use case assessment, but also the engaging the AI governance and the councils along with the testing. Now, I know I've said 3 there, but I feel like
he's just excited for all of next week.
That's it. I feel like all of them 3 are really bringing it together, and it goes back to the testing case as well. You're piecing all of the parts together that's needed in order to be able to articulate your project to anybody within the organization, whether that's the developer, whether that's somebody in the C-level that just wants an analytical approach. All these bases are being covered, and being able to take it in these little bite-sized approach, we're putting them together like building blocks, and it makes it so much easier for everybody to be able to digest and execute.
Yep. Yeah. One of the questions that was asked, I can only see that it is from LinkedIn user, but it says, do you folks have any guidance on how to present to execs what we need to do and why in regards to APA? So this is actually something that's coming as part of next week. Stakeholder management and alignment has an entire thing on what executives care about, what type of information they might want to hear, how they're going to measure success. There's also a section in here for model risk management. Depending on the industry that you're in, this might be a group at your organization that inventories all of the models that exist, how they're applied, who's using them, what they're using them for, and all of the standards associated with that. Traditional model risk management framework stuff is usually at like an executive sponsorship level in a security organization or a technology org. And if you're not able to get through that process, you're not going to be able to get through production. If you don't have one of them at your org, which is pretty common, these are limited to highly regulated industries. And some orgs are starting to pick them up just because of AI and it's how relevant it's becoming. But this is another way that you can start prepping how to think about AI and doing this type of inventorying. And then there's another meeting or another course in here called Engaging AI Councils. AI councils are things that are popping up all over organizations just to make sure that people are doing the right things on the right use cases. And early on in an organization's adoption of AI, these generally are the top people at the organization across every single group. So you will have people in risk, people in each of the lines of business, people in tech, some executive sponsorship from the C-suite level, all of them trying to apply who's doing what. And this course talks about how you can rationalize what Automation Anywhere brings to the table, why you should be considering it, and how it solves a lot of problems, but then also the reasons that it's safe. So this should help with a lot of that. And then if you do have any other questions, feel free to bring them to the forums, and we can talk through them and maybe update our videos if we weren't able to address everything that you had. All right, let's go through some of the other questions. I see Vatsy talking about he loved the comparison in the Testing AI course, talking about completeness and faithfulness. So love the comparison in Testing AI course where they said that earlier the terms completeness and faithfulness were used in a relationship counseling, but now we're using it to test AI. I've cracked 5 jokes throughout weeks 1 and 2. If you can find them on post in the forum, Lou will give you something, I'm sure. But yeah, so completeness and faithfulness, the point of that, if you haven't gotten to that video, completeness and faithfulness, if you've never heard those terms before in terms of AI, that's fine, because I mean they were made up like 2 to 3 years ago. Like these are really new concepts that don't really have a well-defined meaning. There are some places that define completeness in a purely mathematical sense where they're looking at token by token level predictions, but it doesn't really mean anything for what you're trying to do with your use case. And then there are other people that will say, let's run everything through a model and then have humans rate complete or incomplete. That's really, really subjective, and you're not going to get anywhere doing it that way. It's very rare to get people to agree on completeness or incompleteness. And just think about generating an email. The email could be perfectly good, perfectly valid. Somebody could say it's incomplete because they didn't like the signature. A lot of subjectivity introduced. And striking that middle ground is what we're attempting to do, while we're also trying to teach you the ways to think about how to find that middle ground at your organization. There really is no right answer yet. There is no industry best practice, which is making it a little bit Wild West, but we're hoping that the guidance that we give you is helpful. There is a question here from Yogesh R on creating API tasks, bot tasks, and processes since they are new to the platform. So when we built this course material, we intentionally built all of the assets for you. Max wrapped everything together so that all you needed to do was click play, and you could see how the AI part worked. If you want to get hands-on with any of these things and maybe level up the skills that you are going through on your talent matrix, the rest of AA University is open to you. So there are courses on API tasks. There are courses on bot tasks. There are lots of things out there. And maybe we can put in our forums as a takeaway, just some links to some of the starter packs, the developer essentials and developer master training and things like that, just so that people who are new to the program can level their way up to being able to incorporate all the AI stuff we're showing and teaching into their APA solutions.
Just to quickly add to that as well, within the assets file, we do have all of the walkthroughs available. So people that really do want to kind of take a little bit more time to get hands-on, complete the challenge, follow the walkthrough. It takes you through each step of what's needed, from configuring the AI scale to executing it and seeing everything working. So if you want to take your time a little bit more after watching the video, make sure you check out the walkthrough documents.
Yep, that's a good call out. And then I think, Ali, in your week 1 Human in the Loop course, you do kind of talk a little bit about process mapping, variable mapping between things. So it's not a deep dive, but I mean, I think you would still recommend that.
Most definitely. Yeah. And especially for when people are getting into week 4, where we'll be building something which essentially wraps up weeks 1 to 3, Human in the Loop will be featuring. So worth doing.
All right. Let's see, do we have any other questions in here? I see lots of comments about the, oh yeah. So any hands-on session. This is a completely self-driven course. So if this is actually the only live stream that you would need to potentially watch later if you really like me making bad jokes and wanted to catch up on them. Everything else is in AAU and will be indefinitely. So you do not need to worry about finding those recordings. Tune into Automation Anywhere University. Could we put the link to the learning trails in the chat? Anyone can just go right into them. Actually, I guarantee you Vatsy already did that.
He definitely did.
And he did.
Yeah.
He already did. Thank you, Vatsy. You're incredible. You did it before I even asked you to. So we will we'll have those courses out there forever. Just a reminder, access to our control room is limited until the weeks coming shortly after APA training camp cancels. So if you aren't done with the training camp by, I think it's probably early May, you will need to continue all of the developer-centric learning trail outside in your own control room. But all of the leader material will be available indefinitely without any need for control room access. I see somebody saying they don't have access to create a model connection, and that is intentional. We have made it so that you can only use our model connection. If you are loading your model keys with any of the large language models into our control room, you might end up with a very large bill with other people using them if you don't control that correctly. So we've built one for you, free to use, as long as you are following the rules and doing it for our training material. All right. Any other questions coming through? Just lots of CoStar related stuff. While working with connectors, we see options of GPT, GCP Enterprise, Enterprise Knowledge. But how can I configure an LLM which is available on-prem or in my private cloud? That's a great question. Max, I think you cover this a bit in the model connections video in week 1, right?
Do indeed, yes. So in week 1, we touch on this with the other options there, the different data that you need to put in order to be able to connect. Then this is what then will open you up to obviously your fine-tuned and your grounded models as well, which by the sounds of it is exactly what you're looking for.
Yep. So we did leave a lot of those packages and things visible so you could get a sense of what else is possible. Good eye paying attention to those things. For our training camp, you can't connect any of them. We've locked everything down. But if you were in your own control room and you had your own large language model hosted somewhere, or you wanted to connect to one that you've got as part of your organization, following Max's model connections video from week 1, you'd be able to connect with any model that's hosted anywhere to do exactly what you're doing in our training camp with. Awesome. All right. I don't see any more questions coming in. All right, guys. So we will be sending out all of the stuff for week 3, normal time frame. Week 3 is all about stakeholder management for the leaders. Lots of stuff on use case assessment, really long video there, but walks through identifying the different types, breaking down the value associated with them, building out a roadmap. It's a really, really powerful video that a lot of you have been asking for. So I look forward to you guys joining next week where we review that, and you can ask any questions you have there. Don't forget to talk in the forums about what you found important and helpful. Like Lou said, a comment you make might inspire someone else, and you might learn from them as well. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining. We will see you next week.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.